I'm directly giving the floor to Martijn, who's going to introduce us to our good practices and our two speakers as well. Martijn, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Fiona, and also thank you very much for the previous discussion. I really like how it so what we all discussed, because in the end, the title of this webinar is how can a level playing field be created for platform economy, for example, through collective bargaining, worker representation, and alternative ownership and governance models. And I think what Uma really well defined is, okay, the gig worker does not exist, and the gig economy is going in more and more sectors, which also needs to give us a more nuanced view on what happened also per sector and also per condition and variables of the worker. I really liked also, Mark, that you also really showed within the leads indexed that's, yeah, people are protesting for really diverse topics. There's a global view, but still many local differences. And I think we really need to acknowledge that we really need to also look to the different local differences in that. And also Denise also showing with co-op cycle how important the view on local differences are. And also presenting co-op cycle maybe as a global infrastructure for the gig economy, but also to say that there is no silver bullet to solve all problems. And I think many people saw platform cooperatives as the silver bullets, but in life, yeah, that doesn't happen at all. And last, Iftikhar, also, yeah, good that you also mentioned the balance of the individual and collective interest. That's always a balance, especially when you only use to talk to individuals. And also good to see, okay, because we're talking a lot about regulation, but I think in the end we don't need new regulation, but we need enforcement. I think that's the most important thing that also came into your story, and also the question, okay, the big question: how do we value labor, not only on but also outside of platforms? So now to the good practices parts. So what we did with the WageIndicator Foundation, we created, and I will share my screen for this. One moment. There it is. We created a list on the website, which I also now shared within the chats, where we highlight 25 good practices in the global platform economy. And of course, there are many more. But I think what we really wanted to show also the diversity of ways that we can create a more a level playing field within the gig economy by looking to process organizing, bottom-up initiatives, court cases, regulation, external service providers, initiatives by platforms and advocacy groups, and of course also the other category. And I think within the discussion we had much focus on the protest and organizing, the bottom-up initiatives, and also regulation. And it's also nice that within this part, we also have 2 examples and presentations about good practices from external service providers and also initiatives by platforms. And maybe also good to know, I'm also, beside my work for the WageIndicator Foundation, I'm also the founder of GigCV, which is which in this category fits to external service providers, which is a data sharing standards on how platforms in the Netherlands share data on their CV with their workers, which now impacts on 100,000 workers in the Netherlands. And we already had 23,000 downloads on this. The first one I want to introduce is Marcus Steinhauser. Marcus is a co-founder of crowd testing specialist Testbirds, but also the founder of the crowdsourcing code in Germany, which is, I think, a really nice and inspiring initiatives on to see, okay, but how then also can platforms also together with other stakeholders collaborate in the end to make things also work better for the workers. Because I think one thing that we many times forget within the discussion is that in the end the workers are also clients of the platforms. So in the end, platforms also need to do their best for the workers. So I would like to give the floor to Marcus. He has a max 10 minutes presentation about his initiatives. So Marcus, the floor is yours.
Yeah, hi everyone, and thank you, Martijn. And the timer's running, so let's see if we can make it in 10 minutes. I also have a couple of slides I would like to share. So give me 1 second. Okay, you should see them now. So before we come to the crowdworking code of conduct, I would like to briefly introduce what we're doing, because as we heard also in the beginning, the platform economy is very diverse, and I think it's very helpful typically to know what kind of business model we're talking about in order to know, what issues might arise, or also what challenges there might be from the different perspectives. So we, as a company, we've been around for a bit more than 10 years. We're mostly focused in Europe, so in Germany, the Netherlands, and the UK. And our services are around the topic of crowd testing, which means that we are testing digital products, apps, and websites with real users in the end. We have a panel of around 1 million people worldwide, and not all of them are always active. So this is really a panel, and they get invited to certain projects based on profiles. So if we're testing an app for students in London, for example, then only students in London would get an invite for that specific project. They could participate, and then they give feedback on the app, how they like it, if it works, and then they get a payout for participating. And then they might not get another invite for some weeks because we don't have a matching project. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what we're doing. And I would like to spend some time on our code of conduct. Before we do that, one more slide on how this works. So we are a platform-enabled service, as we like to call it. So we have our internal people, in this case here, project managers. They work with our clients. They're mostly European clients, but also from other parts on the globe. And they work out the project scope and they discuss everything kind of together. And this is then transformed into a project description, including what the payout is, what the timelines are, which is then posted on the platform. And then the crowd workers that are kind of accepting the invite, they get to work, and our internal people then typically are in correspondence with them. They approve the work in the end, and then it goes back to the client. So we're basically an intermediary between the company or our client and the platform worker in the end. So when we talk about the code of conduct, what is it? It's something that I think it's nice, Martijn, that you call me also the founder, but in the end, we are the initiator, but the whole thing is supported by a bigger group of companies and also other institutions. And this was started in 2014, so also almost 10 years ago. And it's a set of principles that the signing companies pledge basically to stick to. There are some pretty obvious ones in there, or pretty maybe straightforward ones, right? Like legal tasks and so on. There's also some more tricky topics in there, like fair payment, like good work, good working conditions. Also, when it comes to communication, interaction, responsiveness, payout of earnings, and so on. So in total, it's 10 points, also including data protection, which, nowadays with GDPR in place in Europe, that's kind of a no-brainer almost, but back then it was a bit more maybe relevant to point that out as well. And in total, these are the current companies that are signees of the Code of Conduct. Against mostly also German companies, one UK company is also in there. And the way we are working on this topic is that around about twice a year, we get together. So all of these companies, or most of these companies, together with the IG Metall, which is a big workers' union from Germany, but also in Europe, very traditional workers' union also. And we talk about specific cases and how to develop the code of conduct, but we also exchange on what's happening on regulatory level, on maybe individual cases, but also in research around the topic of crowd working. The business models of these companies are all very similar. There's no delivery business model in there, for example, because we felt that it would require a different set of code, or almost entirely code, because a lot of the challenges are different in other business models. So this is mostly based on click work and creation, and in our case, testing. And I mean, a typical case usually we've talked about workers' rights and enforcing workers' rights. And a typical case is that I have an issue with the platform. I try to contact the platform and resolve the issue, but I can't do anything else, right? Because if I don't get a response, or if it's not a satisfactory response, then kind of my hands are tied, other than going to a lawyer, which, I mean, in reality happens not very often. So something that we launched to have a step in between is the Ombuds Office. And the Ombuds Office is representing these platforms, or the workers on these platforms. What you can already see here in the URL, this is hosted also by the Workers' Union in this case. And it's essentially a place where they can go to try to get some help if they cannot resolve it with the platform. So here there's a simple form basically to fill in. The requirement is you should have tried to resolve it with the platform first. And if that didn't work out, feel free to submit something here. And then the Ombuds Office itself is basically containing representatives from the different stakeholders. It has a platform representative, it has a crowd worker in there, someone from the Workers' Union, and also someone from the Crowdsourcing Association here in Germany. And they look at it and they try to resolve it. In a lot of cases, it's about payout. In a lot of cases, it's also about more fundamental treatment of a worker, right? When it comes to maybe an account that was closed, or how communication happens generally on the platform, or how payment is usually being made. So the Ombuds Office either has individual results, or they come up with general recommendations for the platforms in this group, which are then being discussed in these workshops that we have twice a year. On a global scale, we had around 50 cases in 2022. I think we are right now at 60 or 70 cases for 23, so it's slightly going up from a lot of different countries. But obviously, it's not thousands of cases, because also the current setup wouldn't be able to handle that volume. But I think it's for us, at least for also the other platforms, it's a really nice step to give some more confidence, also a means to our crowd workers to get help if they feel they cannot get it from the platform itself. And if there is a platform that doesn't adhere to the rules, basically, maybe not just once, but consistently or to a large extent, then the platform is excluded from the code of conduct, which doesn't necessarily mean they change their practices, but it still sends a message, I would say. Unfortunately, we've only had to do that once so far, and that in that case, it was about payment, and actually a group of workers that came together and submitted a complaint to the Ombuds Office, and it couldn't be resolved. They didn't get their money so far as I know, and therefore the platform was excluded from the code of conduct. So yeah, in total, this is something that we try to continuously work on and develop further. We're also talking about things like what are potential models that we as platform could maybe prototype before there's legislation, right? So for example, when it comes to social security, there's currently an engagement going on with a researcher here in Germany who has a proposal what that could look like. And a couple of these platforms are about to kind of try this out to see how that could work in practice. So in essence, what we're trying to do here is take a couple of steps before legislation, or before to show what options there are, and to show also good practices of what a potential setups for the different topics can look like. And I think those were the 10 minutes already, so my timer just went off. Happy to answer questions either now or also in the chat. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Marcus, for your contribution. I think it's really nice to hear that you already and your colleagues are working on this for almost 10 years. So it's also nice to see that you can also build something for this for such a long term, and also to see the multi-stakeholder approach of different stakeholders involved, like also the union, to make sure that when there's a complaint where the worker and the platform don't agree on, they can step to a third body to discuss. So thank you very much for that. If you have questions for Marcus, you can also send them in the chat. And now I would also like to give the floor to Ricardo Scantini. He's the Chief Technical Officer and Chief Product Officer at NIPI, which falls within the category in the external service provider. So maybe somebody can highlight Ricardo.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Okay, we hear you, but let's see. Let's see where you are on the screen. Niels, can you help?
There he is.
There you are. Really good. Welcome here. So you also prepared a short presentation. So the floor is yours.
Presentation. Let me choose window. Let me know if you can see it well and hear me well. Okay.
It's loading at the moment, hasn't loaded yet.
Is it?
Yes, there it is.
Great. Great. Okay. First of all, I'm very glad to be present in this event, and thanks to WageIndicator and organizers to give me this space to represent NIPI. So let's talk about how we build the future of work. It's known that the workers lost part of their benefits and their rights in this new type of labor, where the relationship is not more anymore employee and employer. And the platform is also struggling in this reality also. The cost of acquired workers is expensive than ever. The churn rates and the legal issues has incremented considerably these few years. Just for mention, in Latin America, this is our focus. In Latin America, there are 5 million people chasing earnings on the gig economy, and as far as we saw, the reality around the globe and Europe and Asia is pretty the same: an atomized or a fragmented community with no help at all. So NIPI is a B2B2C platform that adds value in 3 different layers for the whole ecosystem, with one single product and affiliation membership. The first layer is allowed to the local partners to reach this audience that is eager to obtain services at a fair price. We pack all those services under a membership, and we sell that membership to the platforms. In the second layer, the platform gets a boost in their productivity from each active membership. And in the third place, we have the worker as a main beneficiary. If the worker increase the engagement or sustain their engagement with the platform, the final cost for them is 0. In our business model, we have included a revolutionary concept that is the NIPI Center. The NIPI Center is a space where the worker can rest, use a bathroom, grab a cup of coffee, repair their bikes, or charge their phones on the go while they are working. We have 4 NIPI centers in Latin America, 2 in Argentina, 1 in Mexico City, and 1 in Dominican Republic. But the most important is, what are we doing with the data that we are collecting? We monitor all the activities and interactions the worker is doing with NIPI, from consuming benefits and services to the usage of the latest map on market that we have developed for them. All our information fuels decision of all of our partners in all directions they need. Our commitment is to be the company of reference to describe this whole industry from the data that we are collecting. All of our offer is measurable, and useful for any who wants to partner up with us. It has been a really fun journey these years, but we are not reached our final destination yet. There is a lot to work, there is a lot to develop, and there is a lot to share. So thank you very much for this space. And this is NIPI is an Argentinian company to the world.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ricardo. And I think your slide didn't work good, but we will also share them also with the audience if you like.
Okay.
Because we only saw your first slides.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Maybe let's see if there are any questions in the chat box. No. Then maybe one last question also for Marcus. So what are your main lessons learned in collaborating with other stakeholders to create such a collaborative initiatives, and then especially with stakeholders outside of the platform economy or the entrepreneurial colleague sphere?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think the basis for everything is the willingness to do something, collaborate, right? But also have a very long, how do we call that in German? Have a long breath, basically, because we meet twice a year in this setup. And for example, for the Ombuds office, it really took us a bit more than a year, I think, in order to set something up, which, you know, compared to how we're doing normal business stuff is very long from my point of view, but it's worth it. So yeah, one learning is just to stick to it, because you know, it pays off in the end. And the other one is to, I would say, be open to different views. I mean, that matters everywhere, but in this case specifically, because also in this group and with the workers' union, views sometimes are quite different, you know, in terms of what's important or what, how a solution could look like. And we don't always agree, you know, but that is part of the process. And also, I think it just results in a better understanding of each other. I don't know if you were looking for more specific learnings, but this is my spontaneous answer.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think also agree to disagree is also really good in these kind of conversations. And also about Ricardo, maybe also one final question for you. So at what way do you also collaborate with the external stakeholders, also like government bodies or others within the debates?
We are not actually debating with the government. We are in a close relation with both the platforms and the workers. So the platform is struggling more with the regulations and the government, and they are we are helping them, the platforms, to achieve or to deliver these benefits and minimize their impact on the legal issues, because we are a bridge to deliver all those benefits, because we are selling memberships to the platform, so the worker doesn't pay any penny for those benefits. So in a way, they can use us as a shield for the legal part. So we are waiting here in Argentina that as well in the complete Latin America, that the regulations came out. So
okay, perfect. There's one question, Ricardo, for you in the chat. The question by Sachin Tiwari. I hope I pronounce your name well. And else forgive me for that. It's okay. Do you think new AI tools like Copilot or AI assistant can be of use for the workers in access to information on workers' rights and regulations?
Yeah, we are working on that. We are collecting a huge amount of data regarding earnings, productivity. We develop a map that doesn't use too much battery and too much data, because this is the two main sources of what a worker needs on the street. So we are collecting data from deliver drivings and hours of connection, and also we can compare it with the earnings. So and the workers, and in order to obtain more and more benefits, they can share with us the complete picture of in which platform they work. So we know if the worker works in Uber and Cabify at the same time, and we can also monitor how much a platform pays in the reality. So we have the complete picture of a worker. And yeah, based on that huge amount of data, we can use AI first to classify users, to get which is the best benefit for the users and usage, which benefits could work best for ones and for others, and that changes that will help us to segment our audience and segment our offer, because we can place the complete offer in every country we open up operations. So we need to accommodate that offer intelligently.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. There's one question. Maybe you can answer it in the chats about if you also give the worker access to data, but we need to also round up. Maybe also a nice bridge also to the next webinar where Fiona will talk about, because for the next webinar, we're also going to use some data of NIPI to really calculate the unpaid labor within the gig economy. But for now, thank you very much, you two, and also the speakers also for your contribution. And I want to give the floor back to Fiona.
Thanks a lot, Martijn, Marcus, and Ricardo as well for joining us here. And thanks a lot to all of the speakers and everybody joining this webinar. I see from all of the discussions in the chat, I think it was an important topic that we covered today, and one that certainly we also have to continue talking about and do more research about. I would like to encourage all of you to also reach out to each other in the chat, like I saw happening already. Please use the space that we created here to also, find new people in your network to discuss further, and let this not be the end of this discussion. I have 3 things that I want to mention to all of you today. We are having our next gig webinar, so our 8th gig webinar on March 22nd on unpaid labor in the gig economy next year. So that's if you want to scan with your phone, you're able to scan the QR code and it will bring you to the events page directly, so you can already register. It's in March, but time is running fast, so we'll hope to see you there as well. Next to that, I would like to point your attention to our fortnightly newsletter that our other Valeria is creating always, where you find most of the information about the gig economy worldwide. Please feel free to subscribe to the newsletter. And we also have our really nice podcast that Martijn is hosting, which you can listen to on your favorite podcast platform, where we also highlight topics related to what we discussed during the webinars, as well as find interesting speakers to talk to about their experience in the gig economy. So I want to thank you all for joining us today.